a positive bit of piracy, but can we say the same thing about Anne of the Indies?
I'll not do my usual and immediately give my one-word answer to that. Anne Bonny, born in Ireland and raised in London and North Carolina, was one of the few female pirates sailing the high seas in the early 18th century. The little that is known of her story is interesting. Stabbing a girl as a wild teenager, marrying young and being disowned by her father, meeting and falling in love with a pirate, who then offered, more or less, to buy her from her husband. Then there's initially being part of a crew disguised as a man, a giveaway pregnancy. That's the pregnancy gave her away. She wasn't giving away her pregnancy. Just the potential ambiguity of that phrase just struck me there. Stealing a ship, more piracy, being sentenced to death, and then that sentence being commuted because she was again pregnant. It's good material for a film. Sadly, 20th Century Fox and writers Arthur Ceesar and Philip Dunn had the thought, lady pirate, and were more or less done. Bonny, here named Anne Providence, played by Jean Peters, is first encountered murdering captured opponents using the traditional walking the plank execution method, though this is apparently okay because of some hand-waving, the British killed my brother, wah 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 nonsense. One of the would-be murder victims, though, is far too pretty to kill, so he's offered a place in the crew instead. This pretty boy is Louis Jourdan's Pierre-François La Rochelle, formerly a captain in the French Navy, and until mere moments ago a prisoner of the British, except that it's all some incredibly unlikely ruse to get him on board Anne's ship and betray her to the Royal Navy, who are holding his own ship hostage. Despite warnings from her crew and her mentor, Blackbeard, they were active at the same time, so they must have been in partnership, goes the film's logic. That he is not to be trusted. She will not hear a word against him. Indeed, the only thing she wants against him is herself. Maybe in that frilly, notably feminine and non-piratey dress that was flagged up early in the proceedings. And then, of course, very much not in it. Anne finally discovers La Rochelle's deceit and, worse, the fact that he has a wife. So she snaffles the wife, takes her to be sold in a slave market in Venezuela. Though a slave market in Venezuela in the early 18th century unaccountably run by Arabs. The innocent wife is saved from slavery, however, not because it's wrong, but because she's already married, and that would be wrong. This idea of women as property of one kind or another, balanced against Captain Providence making her own destiny, could actually make for some compelling themes, but it's clearly not something the film is interested in. And, anyway, Anne is driven throughout simply by lust for La Rochelle. And having been spurned and unable to sell his wife for profit, she maroons the couple to die in a sandbar, before having a change of heart so she can be killed off as a hero. Somehow. It seems that over the years people have tried to read a lot into Jacques Tourneur's Anne of the Indies, seeking deep meaning and commentary, but it's not there. It's a competently enough produced action film, and Jean Peters is at least mildly engaging in the title role, but like its main character, it's very, very shallow, and there's little reason to recommend it. Especially not the actual bear wrestling, which is at best unpleasant to watch, or the laughably bad treasure map used by La Rochelle to entice Anne and lure her to destruction, which was presumably drawn by the bear. If there's a standout, it's Herbert Marshall as the ship's doctor, whose conscience, drowned under decades of grog, finally begins to assert itself and attempts to give Providence some moral guidance. But, well, the whole film swashes insufficient buckles, and it's not worth bothering with.
Yep, grave disappointment, this one, because I'd read a bit about Anne Bonny when this came up as a potential inclusion on this risk, and Anne Bonny seemed like a very interesting character. You surely could make a great film out of this, and no. This is ridiculous. There's obviously a lot of mileage that could be had about having a woman acting what was very much a man's world for this kind of thing, and how would that go? And the answer in this film's logic appears to be she would act as if she's in the world's worst melodrama. And yeah, just everything that she does is either about petty jealousy or lust, as you say. It did not treat her as a character in as much as in her own right as much as it should have done. She has been given little in the way of character motivation, and it's just a kind of silly premise for a film. It's trying desperately hard to be a doomed romance that, in a way that doesn't make any sense, and it's just quite embarrassing to watch. Yeah, not great stuff. Likewise, I'd read that this was held in some regard over the years, and yeah, I do not see it at all. Its only saving grace is that it's quite short, so you don't need to put up with it for too long. But that's the only positive thing I can really say about it. That's perhaps a little harsh, yeah, as you say. Everyone involved is doing their best. It's just that the script's absolutely terrible, and really, yeah, I would give this one a wide berth. It's of no real interest at all in this modern age. No, bit of disappointment, this one.
Yeah, I mean, the film, the whole way through the film, basically felt she was like one step away from swooning.
Exactly, yeah.
It's
she felt it's almost like they were trying to make her as weak as they possibly could, despite the fact that clearly she'd have to be a very strong woman, pretty much by definition. And yeah, it just never felt even remotely true as a character arc for her.
No, it's. Yeah, it seems like the whole thing. Melodrama's a good word, Scott. Soap opera, basically. It's more like it's basically like a Mills and Boon film.
Yeah,
those, which I believe still exist. I remember my gran reading them when it was like those romantic books that, with pictures of like swimming women and muscular men in the cover, and like kind of chaste romance, I think. But it feels like that the whole way through. It's just. It's not, the character's not interesting. She's like, oh, look, I'm a strong woman. Oh, wait, look, there's a pretty man. And then she just falls apart, and that's all that matters after that point.
Yes.
And also, the film starts off with her as a murderer, and I'm not really ever back on board with that. I know that's the danger of a whole episode about pirates, and I am going to be coming back to this point in particular, but you can take pirates in a way and make them not sympathetic, like you're quite happy to accept them as the heroes of the piece. Like Captain Blood's a good example. He's kind of forced into piracy. He was a law-abiding citizen who had a complete injustice done to him, sold into slavery. It's like, right, well, I'm getting out of this then. You'll pay for that.
Yeah.
Whereas in this, it's like, no, she's just murdering people shooting prisoner because... And like I said, this weird hand-wavy explanation about somehow the British had killed her brother. Like, yeah, this is not good. And why would I care about these people? There's nothing interesting about them. They're villains. It's very disappointing because it was a very much a sausage fest this episode for the most part. Beyond like women, for the most part, are only going to pop up as love interests, and this is the one opportunity, like that, probably the most famous female pirate of all. As I said, really interesting backstory as much as you can gather. Like, 'cause nobody knows much about these things. They're well documented.
Yeah.
A lot was based on hearsay and like maybe newspaper reports and stuff, or whatever the similar thing was in the early 18th century. But yeah, this could be really interesting. Oh no, that's what they did with her. Right. What a disappointment. Yes. What a waste.
Yeah. An absolute waste, yeah.